Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Awaken, Heal, and Transform with your host, me, Francesca Raffa. Today, I have a very special guest and dear friend of mine coming to join us. Her name is Ep. She is a fellow spiritual coach, energy healer, sound healer, and just an incredible human being and storyteller. I absolutely love her mission statement around showing her scars so that others may know they can heal. And I am very excited to dive a little bit deeper into this with her today. So let's welcome Gia. Hi, Gia. Thank you so much for joining Awaken, Heal, and Transform today with us. I am so excited for this chat and to get to know you a little bit deeper and sharing your journey, your fantastic journey with all the listeners. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Fran. Thank you so much for having me. I think we have been on a journey together for such a long time, and it's just so lovely to come together and be on your platform with your community. So thank you for having me.
Amazing. Thank you, Gia. I'm so excited to get started. First of all, I actually want to talk about how we met and how we connected, and some of the things that we've done. But we connected through a tea ceremony that we both attended back last year, and we kind of just really hit it off in terms of a similar sort of mission that we have going on, and we connected on a deep soul level where I felt like I had just known you my whole life, and I think you really give off this vibe anyway, because you're so you're so easy to talk to, and you are very empathetic and so understanding towards everyone. So I am so grateful that I get to connect with you and even collaborate and co-create with you, as you like to say. So we've got some exciting stuff coming up as well. So but thank you again for joining us, and let's talk about your journey, and let's just go into that because this is your time and I really want to hear it. So first of all, your mission statement around you showing your scars so others may know they can heal. Let's talk about that a little bit as you introduce yourself.
Of course. So what I am doing now is all about creating a safe, loving space to guide people on a healing process. Even though I am a Reiki master, what I call now is like just energy healer, because it's a combination of all different other aspects of energy healing, from crystal sound bath to ceremonies, light language. It's all just energy. And I feel like Reiki is the foundation that most people tap into when they start playing or working with energy. So when I started this journey, it was on the journey of healing myself. So it was, pure desire just to heal myself, just to figure out what's going on, how to make sense of it. And that came about when I was working in the financial district, and I had one of, I'm going to call it my first real major breakdown. So I suffered from severe alopecia. And like we were going wig shopping. It was just really, really bad. Like my skin would turn purple, and we didn't know what was going on. So that was the first time when I started to take a step back and look holistically as a whole at what's going on. Because I was having therapy at that time. It was a very stressful time of my life. But it was only through going in and studying energy work and mindfulness and bringing my well-being back to a good grounded or a good start of being the woman that I am today. So all I try to do nowadays, this mission statement is really, I think the scariest thing for a lot of us is being vulnerable and asking for help, or feeling safe to admit when you are on this journey to be a better version of you. It can become scary and isolated. And all I really wanted to do was just show up as authentic as I could be, and then share the tools that I use or am using on a day-to-day basis to be as grounded and as, I don't know, I want to say sane, as a sane person, even though I don't count myself as a sane person. I'm just a crazy chick who's trying to, get through life like everyone else. But that's the whole purpose of the mission statement. It was just to be seen, heard, loved, and respected fully, by being brave and showing my vulnerability.
I love that. So what are the tools, some of the tools that you use and share to your clients and use yourself?
Yeah, so the biggest thing for me is shadow work. And a lot of people are now starting to become awakened to spiritual practice or, well-being, and you hear like, oh, shadow work and the ego death. And basically what that means is, for me, the first thing is to admit where there is resistance or disturbance inside internally. So whether your body's, breaking out, trying to scream at you, or there's just some resistance there that doesn't feel aligned with who you are. And what I would like to do for myself is, there are loads of different practices, and most of them are reflective questions where you really look into yourself. But also, it's kind of strange because I was never a big fan of meditation. And people always think meditation is one of those things where you have to sit on a mat and, you have to think of nothing. And what I try to teach, my clients or my community, is actually just taking it back to breath. So breath has really, really helped me as a tool that I use day to day. It sounds so simple, but we don't even realize how we're breathing most of the time. So before we do anything, is breathing. And then once you, align with your breath, then you can start doing the shadow work. And shadow work is really just looking at where your triggers are. And we get triggered all the time, even if it's a little thing. It's recognizing where that sits in your body, recognize where that emotion stems from originally, and then being kind to yourself to allow the emotions to come up. So that's what I guess what I would call my shadow work is, being seen. So the first thing is being seen and respecting those emotions, because it has a purpose, it has a place. And then once you give these emotions, I guess, a space to be seen, you bring it some love, so then you can kind of release it.
Yes.
You can't fix the problem if you don't know where the problem stems from, or what it is. So yeah, those are my two top skills. I want to say move your body, because as someone who used to be a professional dancer, I love dancing. I love moving my body, but I have to admit, during lockdown, I have not moved enough. But yeah, those would be my top three things. But right now it's boxing for me. So I'm moving my body. I don't feel like being graceful. I feel like punching something, and that's okay too.
So what I'm hearing, and what I think is fabulous about what you said, is literally taking it back to basics of the things that we usually take for granted.
Yeah.
So like our breath, and being able to allow ourselves to feel.
Yes.
So that goes on to sort of my next point of interest around turning your pain into power, because you have to feel this painful stuff and you have to be able to bring it up and release it. So do you want to just share some stories where perhaps you have had to turn your pain and use it as your power?
Yeah, of course. And I guess I'll share the story that I'm sharing quite a lot on Clubhouse, because it's all about female empowerment. So and some of your followers of what you definitely know. So I was born in Thailand, Bangkok, and I lived between my village, the northeast, and the slums of Bangkok city. So I was exposed to the red light district, and the sex industry at a very young age. But as a Thai woman, we're also groomed culturally of what a good Asian woman looks and feels like. So long story cut short, that kind of shaped my relationship, and I made really, really bad relationship choices when I came to the UK, which led me to being raped and gang raped. So healing through my sexual trauma and pain, I didn't know how to heal through it as a young adult or late teen. I seeked for things all the wrong places, like being really promiscuous, and it got to the point where I actually ended up, having multiple suicide attempts. But it was all me trying to find a way to heal. Not only was I confused in my sexual identity or my identity as a woman in general, I also had this massive trauma that nobody really at the time knew about it. That led me to being in the adult industry. And coming out of that, I ended up, finding a way to turn the pain of men and turn the pain of my trauma into something that was going to be an income, as well as consented, so I was a dominatrix. And that didn't help me to heal my pain either. So all of this was going on in the background, that I ended up actually with the coming out of that industry because of a failed suicide attempt, going into trying to rebuild my life, my identity, what a normal Gia would look and feel like, then having the alopecia. So it's whole vicious cycle. And all it ever taught me was turning the pain into pleasures, that somewhere along the line, there is something greater that you need than just the textbook. So then, the therapy, the understanding, the self-love journey, somewhere along the line, you choose to be something different. You choose a different path, and there's a cutoff point. So me looking back now, being able to speak so openly and actually without shame about my story, is a really powerful thing. And what I've realized is, since this whole year has been on Clubhouse, that the community I've created for people to be like, oh, actually, there was a time when someone took advantage of me. You've allowed me to do this. Or, talking about, well, right now I'm working on empowering women, especially Asian women, around their sexuality and sensuality, and not over sexualizing it, changing the stigma about being, overly loose or whatever it is. It's just being in the power of your sensuality as a divine woman, and finding the strength to have healthy boundaries as well. It's still something I'm working on. But without all of these things happening, I don't think I could have been the woman I am today. I think for me, what helped me to get to during the darkest times was knowing that there was always wisdom in this pain. So, life throws things at you all the time, but it's always about that choice. You're going to be a victim, or you're going to turn something into it. And there's a balance. And it's okay to acknowledge when someone's, took advantage, but then it's also okay to take back that power and make something else. And I think the greatest teacher, the greatest healers are those who have gone through the work themselves.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
It's such a kind of a recurring theme that's happening for me lately as well, about obviously the best teachers are those that have learnt the lessons themselves, and so they've gone through the journey and are able to help others and guide others along their journeys as well. And what I really liked about you sharing so vulnerably in your story is the fact that you mentioned shame, and how, you can now, with the power of this pain, talk about it without shame. And I think that leads back to the shadow work that you do, because a lot of the time people don't want to bring up these painful experiences because then they feel ashamed. So talk us through how maybe you would guide or advise someone that was feeling lots of shame to be able to own their story and actually use it as a power tool.
I think the first thing I would say is, let's go back to where the story of shame stems from. So that's the first step. When was the first time shame was presented to you? Because it's like, collecting your database, and your database usually stems from adolescent stage. So when we pinpoint that time when, I don't know, maybe you wet yourself during nappy training, and you got so much shame because you wet yourself in public at parties, like it really does stem from something simple like that.
Yeah.
And then we're changing the story, and we're saying, okay, but at that time you were young and you were training. This will happen when you are trying to learn a new thing, when you're trying to learn your body, and when we recreate the story and understand that shame was put on us because of maybe our parents' expectations. So that's the first thing I do, is actually let's find the root cause of where this shame stems from. And then there will be little scenarios that's very similar to that first seed. Work through those seeds, and then we unravel it, and then we create a new story. And creating a new story isn't by saying that it didn't happen and the shame didn't exist. Creating a new story is saying, you know what, I was young, and and again, not playing victim, is saying, I understand at that time my parents may have felt embarrassed because I was out in public, but I was young. They could have dealt with it better, but I understand. and then start the healing process of, forgiveness of self.
Yeah.
Because I think as humans, the first thing we do is we always try to have some control, because when we don't feel in control, we feel lost. So we think, if I control this, if I change this, so change the shame, avoid the scenario to avoid the shame. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. And going back to it on a just a shortened version is just accepting that what happened, and like you said, being able to rewrite it once you finally accept where it stems from.
Yeah.
Because again, just a lot of the things that you're saying are just so they're all interlinked, of course, but it's always the simple things, like you said. Those people don't remember the certain situations or stories that have happened when they were younger, because in our today's mindset, we think, oh, that's nothing, that's such a simple thing but it did affect you, believe it or not. Those things are all what builds you. That's how we think.
Yeah.
And
It's interesting that you say that, because like it really is that simple. And I always say that situations will repeat itself until you heal the very root of it.
Yeah.
So I always say to my clients, same shit, different toilet. You can keep on telling me, but it happened with a different person. No, but it's still the same vibration. The vibration is shame. The vibration is rejection.
And you can't change that vibration unless you can't change the attraction of that vibration unless you change it yourself.
Yeah. And that doesn't work if you're avoiding it.
Yeah, of course, definitely not. Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And that's just what we need to do more as a collective level. And that's the first step to healing, because we can then make the changes when we choose. And that's another recurring theme at the moment as well, is remembering that we have the choices to, we actually have the choice to choose.
Right. But that's harder for an empath. I'm going through that journey at the moment of like, you have a choice, Jeff. I'm like, I do. And I get it. I think I get it. I think a lot of the people that, my clients, the people I work with, or even in my community, they're all empath. And as empath, the shame, the guilt, the responsibility is a little bit harder to move, to navigate through.
Definitely, I agree on so many levels there. I feel like the last few weeks I've done a lot of work around vulnerability and shame of my past relationships and things like that. So I have been feeling the shame, feeling it all, and accepting it with compassion finally. But it does take a little while to accept it. I think that's the hardest part, is really accepting it for what it is, for part of you as well, because sometimes you can detach yourself from those past selves, because you are so ashamed to be holding on to that part of you that you detach it. And that's actually very detrimental. It can be dangerous to detach yourself from yourself. That's where lost soul fragments start happening, and you won't feel whole because you're disassociating.
And I think a lot of spiritual people are doing this at the moment, especially practicing duality. Or the non-duality relationship is almost like taking away the ownership of the experience, the ownership of the vibration, and just disregarding it. So like when we are talking about shame and taking ownership, and it's always important to give yourself grace, because no matter how spiritual we can be, and I feel like your community are probably pretty spiritual, that we forget we are still having a human experience.
Yes.
And to give us that grace, give yourself grace to integrate.
Another thing I was thinking the other day was, even as a spiritual practitioner and coach and whatever, I may have all the tools. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to use them all of the time, because my humanness sometimes gets in the way, and it takes that extra long process to sit with myself and allow myself that time to be able to realize. But it doesn't mean that just because I know all the tools, am I going to be able to just like that and my trauma's gone. It's still all a process, just like everybody else, and some people take longer on that journey than others.
And it's still an experience. Like, this is the thing, everything is all about we're looking at, if we're going to take a step outside and look in, it's all just an experience. But you can't experience an experience if you're detaching yourself, or if you're forcing yourself to reach a destination before you're going through this process.
Yeah.
And there's this rush. But in this experience, even if it's uncomfortable, there is this magic. Like I had a recent experience over the weekend where a friend of mine, kind of assumed, because I stayed over, like, oh my God, some sexy time. I'm like, no, but I felt so bad for saying no. But this was my shame about my past. And, healing comes in stages, and healing comes in process. And that even though it may not be extreme as the first seed where that trauma came from, it is still that vibration. But instead of me, so we're talking about, transmuting pain into power, instead of me sitting there and, being victimized, I was like, wait a minute, I didn't speak up here. This is my opportunity to speak up. This is my opportunity to say, hey, Gia, you matter too. And I was with my PT, and he said to me, but you're sitting here thinking about making other people feel uncomfortable, but you're here crying on the inside, really uncomfortable. And I was like, yeah. He was like, but you don't owe anyone anything. We're still in a pandemic. Let's not forget, we're still in a pandemic. So we don't owe anything to anyone. I was like, yeah.
Do you feel like on the healing journey that there are constant tests?
Oh, I mean, is it constant test, or is it constant opportunity to redefine and retune the radius? When you're trying to get Kiss FM, and you're like, and then traffic hits you, and then you're like, so it's like that. So just that's how I'm seeing it at the moment. I'm trying to listen to my favorite song, maybe on Kiss or 100 or something, and then the trees come and then I have to retune it, and it's just life. It's the dance of life, isn't it? Yeah. Is it Tess, or is it the dance of life?
That's so true. It's a good way to look at it. But for me, I just feel like sometimes when I feel like I've conquered something will creep up from my past to be like, aha, okay, you think you've conquered it. Well, now here you go. Let's see how you act with this one. Are you going to stand in your power today, or are you going to give in and people please?
Yeah. Oh, the people pleasing one, we could talk about that for ages too.
So, it's that, isn't it? Because it's like, yes, I'm not a people pleaser anymore, but bam, now you may be if you're given that scenario. So yes. It's for me personally, I just feel like it's always that constant awareness on how am I going to tackle a situation. And you know what? It's okay not to respond straight away if you need that time to think about it. If someone's asked to see you and you're just like, not sure on this situation, it's okay to wait it out until you're ready to answer in the way that you want to answer, with compassion for the other person, but with yourself as well, and doing it.
And that's another tool there, right? Is that if it doesn't resonate with you in your body, to jump out and say yes, take a pause.
Yes.
It's okay to keep people on read. Or do sometimes what I do when I'm not in the mood, take off my notification that there's no double tick.
Yeah.
You have, I think it's hard for us to put ourselves first as people pleasers, as empaths, like, because we always feel guilty. We are human, working through that ourselves. And then sometimes I think other people don't realize the anxiety that goes behind when they're like, I want to do this. So yeah, I totally agree with you. And that is a skill, and that is a tool, is taking a pause. Honor yourself. If you don't, then how are you going to teach other people to?
That's it. The boundaries, again, from what you were mentioning earlier, and how you teach that with others as well. I mean, I could talk to you forever about every single thing under the sun. But I really want you to tell us a little bit more about what you do and where we can find you. How can we connect with you? And also, I mentioned earlier that I had the pleasure of attending some of your amazing sessions and workshops. And are you planning on hosting any soon, or what's in store? What you got planned?
Yes. So the new website is currently being developed, but you can still catch me on my website that's up at the moment. I am taking one-on-one energy healing sessions. So I do obviously all energy work, but I specialize in Reiki. And I now am moving more into sound. So crystal sound baths is something that I really love. And you'll hear my talks a lot in Clubhouse at the moment. And I will be coming back on doing my Instagram live where I get really intimate with my community. So it's a big fun and laugh and a joke. There are things in the pipeline that's happening that I'm quite excited about. It will be a journey of me and my mother sharing a story. So it's healing through my mother wound, and about identity as women, about identity as mother and daughter relationship and stuff, and the boundaries and limitations. And so that's something that I'm putting out there in the universe, as well as so hopefully by summertime my online training course will be available, and that goes from all things actual, you know, energy work, Reiki, crystal, sound, color therapy. It's all gonna be there. And then there's the magical stuff with you and me. I keep on birthing and never like I'm like, it's there and I can see it happening, so I'm not worried about it, in divine timing. But we have a few workshops that I have, you know, me have put out there into the universe. And as someone who is very passionate about sensuality and sex education, we will sometime this year, keep an eye out, called Thai and Tea. So falling into your senses, and just really bringing in spirituality, sense play, being vulnerable, because we love vulnerability, feeling safe, and feeling held and loved. And that's a really exciting one. I think that's my biggest exciting thing for this year.
I'm so excited. You've got so many things happening. I am just amazed to witness everything that you have coming, and it's always incredible. Like I said, you are such an intimate, vulnerable, open, beautiful soul, and it just encourages everybody else to do the same, and that is what I love so much about you and all of your work and everything that you do. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you. And yeah, stay tuned for GAP stuff coming up and the things that we are going to be co-creating together. We are so excited.